Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something incredibly urgent. We've got a priority intelligence report here from Aionios Vanguard, and honestly, it outlines a severe crisis that's accelerating right now.
That's right. We're talking about the U.S. federal government shutdown. It's day 29, October 29th, 2025.
And this isn't just political chatter anymore, is it? The sources we have paint a picture of, well, systemic failure, the well-being of millions, their economic stability. It's all on the line right now.
Exactly. Our job today is to cut through the noise. We need to get down to the hard facts, look at these huge deadlines hitting this week.
The immediate cliffs, as the report calls them.
Precisely. And quantify the economic fallout, which goes way beyond Washington, D.C., and, importantly, distill the report's advice on community resilience.
The speed is what's alarming. So today's focus.
Yeah.
Two massive areas hitting at once. Military pay, a historic disruption, and critical food programs just stopping.
And these aren't separate issues. They cascade, threatening to stall local economies everywhere. Okay, day 29, let's unpack it.
Where do things stand politically? Still gridlocked.
Completely. Nearing a month now, sources confirm negotiations are just stalled. Senate Democrats have blocked clean continuing resolutions, or CRs, from Republicans.
How many times now?
This is the 13th time. The GOP bills were aimed at just keeping the lights on temporarily, without tackling the bigger funding fights.
And counter from Democrats. What's their line?
They're holding out, refusing to fund the government unless specific items are included, mainly those Affordable Care Act subsidies and certain foreign aid packages.
That was a high-stakes leverage game.
Absolutely, and that's the engine driving this gridlock. While they maneuver in D.C., the first really big human cost just hit. October 31st.
That was the military payday.
Yes, a historic threshold crossed. Over 2 million active duty personnel, plus hundreds of thousands of essential federal workers who aren't furloughed. They missed their first full paycheck.
It's every branch of the military. Has this happened before on this scale?
Not in modern history. This is the most extensive pay disruption the U.S. military has faced. It's an instant shock for families.
Families often living paycheck to paycheck on that salary. The report mentions reliance on outside help already.
It's immediate. Food banks near major military bases are seeing demand jump 60%, just from military families.
60%. Wow.
And that's critical because those families are now part of this even larger group facing the next deadline, November 1st, 42 million Americans.
And that brings us to SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and WIC women, infants, and children. 1 in 8 Americans use SNAP.
About 42 million people, yes. And crucially, that includes 21 million children.
So what happens November 1st? How does it fail?
It's brutally simple. The USDA funds are depleted, so in November, SNAP payments are suspended nationwide.
Suspended entirely.
Correct. People can use whatever balance is left on their EBT cards, their benefit cards, but no new funds will be added. And critically, Congress hasn't guaranteed any retroactive pay.
So for millions, that balance hits zero this week. They'll need food pantries immediately.
Instantly. And then there's WIC. That serves about 6.5 million mothers and infants, some of the most vulnerable.
What's the situation there? Is it the same?
WIC faces huge disruptions without a CR. It's a bit more complex because states help administer it. Some states, like New York or Missouri, have temporary buffers, some reserves.
But those won't last long.
Not long at all. They're short-term fixes. The report is clear. This isn't just an inconvenience. For these groups, it's a direct risk of widespread malnutrition and the health crises that follow.
It's hard to fathom, given this pressure, the human cost, that November 1st deadline. What's the intel say about resolution? Can this gridlock really hold?
Well, looking at past shutdowns, historic models give maybe a 60% chance of resolution by mid-November. Public pressure usually forces something.
But this time feels different.
It does. The report notes this standoff is particularly fierce, highly volatile. Senate Democrats seem prepared to let this drag on, possibly past Thanksgiving, to get their policy goals included.
Okay, so if the full package isn't happening soon, what about just helping the troops? That seems like something everyone could agree on. Is a military first CR likely?
The intelligence suggests that's unlikely, maybe a 30 to 40% chance for a standalone bill just for military pay. Congress usually likes comprehensive deals, not piecemeal ones.
We've seen attempts, though, right?
Yeah.
Bills proposed just for the military.
We have. Republicans, like Senator Johnson, have pushed for military-specific funding, but the Democratic strategy has been to block those.
Why?
Leverage. They're using the urgency around military pay and federal pay more broadly to force Republicans to include the ACA subsidies and foreign aid in whatever bill finally passes. It's a calculated and very high-risk political gamble.
This is where the data gets really interesting. Mapping the public mood. We looked at social media, X, Reddit. What are people saying? What's the sentiment out there?
Overwhelmingly anxious and negative, about 65% negative sentiment. The terms just spiking are things like mass panic, especially about CessNap cuts and really desperate phrases, ruining lives.
Is the blame focused anywhere?
It is, and quite specifically right now. The analysis shows about 65% of the blame in these online conversations is being directed at Democrats. The perception is they're taking essential programs hostage for unrelated demands.
That's a significant political finding. What does the report project happens to that sentiment if we blow past November 1st without a deal?
Panic surges. The projection is a 30 to 50% increase in panic indicators, and it won't just be online chatter.
We'll see it on the ground.
Yes. Immediate overload at food banks, a big spike in calls to distress lines, and probably widespread local protests, driven by real fear and immediate need.
And the longer-term risk if this shutdown drags on, say, past 45 days.
That's currently seen as maybe a 40% possibility. If that happens, we're looking at potential structural damage, things like a 15 to 25% sustained rise in food insecurity across the country.
The focus so far is often on federal workers, military families, benefit recipients. But this report highlights major secondary effects, hitting people who aren't directly tied to federal funding.
That's the ripple effect, and it's terrifying. Let's talk retail. The SNAP suspension alone is projected to slash grocery store revenues by a staggering $8 billion every month.
$8 billion a month just gone from grocery stores.
Just gone. It's not gradual. It's an immediate, massive hole in consumer spending that retailers have to react to.
And how are they reacting? It seems to be hitting their employees first. We're hearing about hour cuts at big chains like Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart handles almost a quarter of all SNAP spending nationally, so they feel it fast.
And the impact on their workers.
Our open source intelligence confirms it's happening widely. Preemptive hour cuts. Workers at major chains are seeing shifts slashed. People who normally work 40 hours are suddenly down to 10, maybe 20 hours a week.
These are often low-wage workers to begin with.
Exactly. Maybe making $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Cutting their hours in half. Well, the shutdown is effectively pushing a whole new group of working Americans towards poverty.
To really understand this secondary shock, the report uses a case study, Josephine County, Oregon. What does this $8 billion national loss look like on the ground there?
Josephine County is a stark example because they have a high SNAP reliance. About 25,000 residents depend on it. That's 28% of their population, much higher than the state average.
So what's the dollar impact locally?
When SNAP halts, the county immediately loses about $3 million in spending power each month. But here's the crucial part the report stresses: the SNAP dollar multiplier.
Okay, tell us about the multiplier. That sounds important.
It's huge. Every SNAP dollar spent generates between $1.50 and $1.80 in local economic activity. It supports jobs at the store, the suppliers, the distributors, everything.
So losing $3 million in SNAP isn't just a $3 million loss.
Not at all. It means somewhere between $4.5 million and $5.4 million in total economic activity just vanishes from Josephine County. Every month, this goes on.
And that pressure falls where?
Instantly onto local nonprofits,
Right.
the Josephine County Food Bank, for example. They have to try and fill that enormous sudden gap.
Pulling back again, looking at the bigger picture. What are the tertiary effects? The ones that ripple out even further. What are the macro risks here?
Potentially catastrophic for the broader economy. If this gridlock continues, the national economy could hemorrhage $15 to $20 billion every week.
15 to 20 billion a week.
Yes, and that $8 billion monthly SNAP loss we talked about. Because of the lost multiplier effect through the whole supply chain, that translates to a $12 to $14 billion drag on GDP growth.
If this lasts into December, what about jobs long-term in these sectors? Retail, food service.
The forecast is pretty grim. The Intel report projects potential 15 to 25% rise in unemployment, really concentrated in retail and also low-wage health sectors, facilities, shops. They just can't sustain staffing or services without that federal money flowing somewhere in the system.
We also have to talk about the most vulnerable, the elderly and people with disabilities. They rely on these programs in really complex ways, don't they?
Absolutely. Over 1.3 million seniors depend on SNFP and WIC. The shutdown hits retirement homes, assisted living facilities. They face huge funding gaps. Reimbursements for meals and care get massively delayed.
What does that mean for residents?
It means an immediate risk of malnutrition for maybe 20 to 30% of residents in those facilities. And the facilities themselves, they might have to cut staff severely or even face closure if they can't cover costs. They become insolvent.
And that malnutrition, the stress,
Yeah.
it just creates more problems down the line, right, for healthcare?
Exactly. Malnutrition from SNFP cuts drives up health costs for children and seniors significantly. The sources project maybe $10 to $20 billion in annual indirect costs nationally. It strains hospitals, schools, local emergency services. It's a vicious cycle.
A cycle of economic and human distress, all stemming from a political stalemate.
That's the reality of it.
This analysis from Aionios Vanguard is deeply sobering. Day 29, that November 1st cliff right ahead of us, $15 billion potentially lost each week. Working families pushed into poverty just for working at a grocery store. But the report doesn't just leave us there. It talks about community strength, what it calls the agape strategy.
Yes, the sustaining hand of community love and action. That's the crucial pivot here. While Washington is gridlocked, the immediate solutions have to come from the ground up. Proactive community resilience.
So the report gives practical advice.
It does. Actionable recommendations to try and lessen the immediate pain for people caught in this.
Okay, let's get specific. For those workers seeing their hours cut the secondary victims, what should they do?
First step, immediate financial action. If your hours drop below 30 a week, apply for partial unemployment benefits. Go to your state's employment department website right away.
Are there other resources?
Yes, check for emergency assistance programs. A key resource is dialing 211 or visiting 211.org. They connect people to local aid.
And for communities trying to brace for this, how do we strengthen local support?
We have to harden local operations. Supporting food banks is absolutely paramount. They need funds, they need volunteers now. The Josephine County Food Bank, that case study, they're already prepping for a 25 to 30% surge in demand.
What else on the community level?
Check on your neighbors, especially seniors, veterans, anyone who might be isolated. And a practical tip, if people still have funds on their October EBT cards, use them now for non-perishables while supplies are stable.
And finally, for the elderly in those high-risk retirement homes.
Facility managers need to tap into any existing state-buffered aid they can find. Look into programs like LIHOOP, the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. It might offer temporary financial relief, even if delayed.
And for the residents themselves.
They should immediately seek out local senior meal programs, Meals on Wheels, things like that, to ensure they don't miss out on nutrition.
The facts are stark. Congress is stalled, playing a high-stakes political game, and the nation is facing a genuine humanitarian crisis, fueled by these secondary and tertiary economic shocks we've laid out.
It really feels like a moment where systemic government failure shifts the burden of care directly onto communities, onto neighbors, helping neighbors.
Time is incredibly short. But as the report emphasizes, that power of community action agape is the most immediate defense we have right now.
It truly is.
So the question this intelligence report leaves us with, the one we really want you, the listener, to consider deeply, is about collective responsibility. Knowing the scale of this crisis, knowing how it ripples out, what is your specific actionable role? What can you do right now to help ensure provision for your neighbors, for the most vulnerable in your own community during this profound period of government-induced uncertainty?